7 seconds in a forbidden corridor is all it takes to shatter the illusion of absolute safety and send shockwaves rippling through the entire British royal security apparatus. In a world as meticulously controlled and heavily guarded as the British monarchy, time is never just a collection of random numbers on a clock face. It is the ultimate line between absolute safety and total vulnerability. Inside the palace walls, every single tick of the clock represents a synchronized movement of bodyguards, high-tech surveillance systems, and decades of military-grade training designed to shield the royal family from any outside threat. Yet, in a shocking turn of events that has captured the frantic attention of royal insiders, media houses, and seasoned commentators alike, a fraction of a moment has managed to pierce through this invisible armor. A mere fragment of time, lasting less than 7 single seconds within a strictly restricted and highly confidential corridor, has allegedly triggered an unprecedented wave of anxiety and deep-seated panic throughout the Royal Protection Command. According to a series of urgent whispers and leaks emerging from well-placed sources within the palace walls, this deeply unsettling event occurred at a time when the Prince of Wales, Prince William, was making his way through a highly classified sector during a high-profile, state-level royal event. This particular gathering was not a casual or spontaneous affair. It was an occasion that had been painstakingly prepared and heavily rehearsed for several consecutive weeks, involving multiple intricate layers of elite security protocols. The preparations included rigorous background checks on every single invited guest, total surveillance of the perimeter, and a seamless coordination matrix between various special tactical protection units. In a high-tension scenario where everything should have been completely sterilized and under absolute control, a sudden and terrifying anomaly emerged out of nowhere. Whispers from the inner circle suggest that an unidentified individual, someone completely unknown to the primary security detail and lacking the proper high-level clearance, was suddenly spotted standing directly inside a restricted zone that should have been entirely blocked off from the public and non-essential staff. This unexpected presence, standing like a shadow in a place it should never have been, immediately caught the sharp and vigilant eye of Prince William himself. Those close to the situation report that the prince froze instantly, his instincts kicking in as his eyes locked onto the unexplained figure in the dimly lit corridor. Within a heartbeat, the atmosphere shifted from calm state elegance to a cold, suffocating panic as the royal bodyguards and immediate tactical officers redirected their full attention and weapons to that exact coordinates. This brief, fleeting moment, which might seem trivial or like a simple administrative mistake to an outside observer, has been described by insiders as a catalyst for a terrifying level of tension that the palace hasn't witnessed in decades. The sheer speed at which the environment transformed from a highly controlled, formal celebration into a frantic state of hypervigilance was nothing short of alarming. Prince William, visibly shaken and profoundly angry, reportedly demanded an immediate, face-to-face explanation from the most senior security commander present on the field. This raw, unfiltered reaction from the future king perfectly illustrates just how incredibly dangerous any breach of protocol is considered to be within the modern monarchy, especially when it concerns the safety of those who carry the weight of the crown's future. Behind this chilling incident lies a mountain of uncomfortable questions and furious speculation regarding how an unauthorized individual could bypass multiple elite layers of security. In the legendary defense system of the British monarchy, especially the circle protecting the direct heir to the throne, every single point of entry is monitored by biometric data, physical checkpoints, and constant intelligence screening. Therefore, the mere suggestion that a physical blind spot exists within these walls has sent panic through the highest ranks of the establishment. Royal commentators argue that even if this individual posed no direct physical threat and was simply a law staff member, the incident itself represents a catastrophic structural failure. It breaks the fundamental golden rule of royal security: absolute prevention of any perimeter compromise, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Following this terrifying encounter, a massive wave of silent panic swept through the palace administration, with senior officers seen rushing to re-verify credentials and locking down all immediate access points to prevent a secondary breach. Deep internal debates are now raging behind closed doors as tactical teams try to determine whether this was a failure of technology or a severe case of human negligence. The heavy, suffocating silence maintained by Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace has only served to fuel the fire of public curiosity. In the calculated world of royal public relations, total silence is rarely a sign of ignorance. Rather, it is a deliberate tactic used to contain a massive internal crisis while they scramble to fix a broken system before the public realizes just how close the danger came. The structural cracks spreading through what was once considered the single most impenetrable security fortress in the modern world can no longer be hidden behind the grand facade of royal pageantry. For generations, the physical protection of the British sovereign and the immediate heirs to the throne has been revered by global intelligence agencies as a masterclass in defensive operations, combining high-tech counter-surveillance with the elite forces of the British military. Former protection officers often described the inner security perimeter of the palaces as a flawless, living mechanism that adapted instantly to any emerging threat long before it could ever reach the inner sanctums. However, the rapidly changing dynamics of the 21st century have slowly exposed deep, systemic vulnerabilities within this massive bureaucratic apparatus, causing unprecedented friction behind closed doors. Rumors from deep inside the administrative heart of the palace suggest that senior security veterans have been quietly raising red flags for several years regarding the escalating operational exhaustion among the frontline personnel. The relentless schedule of high-stakes public appearances, coupled with a severe shortage of elite specialist bodyguards, has reportedly created a dangerous pressure cooker environment where a catastrophic human error was not just possible, but statistically inevitable. The terrifying 7-second encounter in the restricted corridor was not an isolated technological glitch, but the terrifying manifestation of a system pushed far beyond its psychological and physical limits. The core of this explosive crisis stems from a fundamental and seemingly irreconcilable dilemma that faces the House of Windsor as it desperately tries to navigate the demands of a fiercely modern era. On one hand, there is immense institutional pressure on Prince William and Princess Catherine to abandon the old, detached mysticism of the monarchy and adopt a thoroughly transparent, accessible public image. This modern strategy demands that the royals constantly break down the traditional physical barriers, engage in spontaneous crowd walkabouts, and project an aura of warmth and accessibility to maintain their global cultural relevance. Yet, on the very opposite end of the spectrum, every single step closer to the public inevitably widens the window of vulnerability for the tactical protection command to manage. Security analysts note that managing an open, unpredictable crowd in a chaotic public space is a living nightmare for bodyguards who are trained to operate on absolute precision and total control. The expanding distance between the traditional ironclad protocols of the past and the casual demands of contemporary public relations has created a fertile breeding ground for critical miscommunications and delayed response times. This growing administrative rift has ignited a furious blame game within the palace walls, pitilessly turning different departments against one another as they scramble to assign responsibility for the terrifying breakdown. As the frantic internal investigation digs deeper into the exact sequence of events that led to the restricted corridor breach, the spotlight has focused heavily on the highly controversial involvement of private security contractors and local municipal authorities. In an effort to modernize operations and manage the skyrocketing costs of royal events, the palace administration has increasingly relied on a complex, multi-tiered network of external security firms to manage the outer perimeters and secondary access points. According to scathing leaks from retired protection officers, this fragmented approach has directly eroded the strict discipline and absolute loyalty that once defined the entirely centralized Royal Protection Command. The presence of non-military, outsourced personnel who lack the rigorous, specialized training required for protecting the direct line of succession has introduced a chaotic element into the system. It is whispered that the unidentified individual who managed to penetrate the restricted zone may have exploited a catastrophic failure in communication between the inner royal bodyguards and the outsourced external contractors who were tasked with verifying the credentials of the event staff. This alarming revelation has completely shattered the fragile sense of trust among the senior members of the royal family, who now find themselves questioning whether the very system designed to shield them from harm has been compromised by commercial shortcuts and administrative laziness. The emotional aftershocks of this terrifying security breakdown have quietly penetrated the private quarters of Adelaide Cottage, forever altering the daily lives of the people who represent the absolute future of the British Crown. While Prince William continues to wage a fierce bureaucratic war behind palace walls to dismantle the faulty security apparatus, the psychological toll on Princess Catherine has become a matter of deep concern among their closest confidants. Sources close to the Princess of Wales whisper that despite her incredibly calm, poised, and flawless demeanor during recent official public appearances, the reality behind closed doors is filled with a heightened sense of vulnerability. Catherine, who has spent years masterfully balancing her public duties with her fiercely guarded role as a protective mother, is said to be deeply unsettled by the realization that an unauthorized stranger could stand just a few feet away from her husband in a restricted area. The terrifying thought of what could have happened in those 7 seconds if the individual had been driven by malicious intent has forced the family to completely reevaluate their relationship with the public space. This is no longer a dry debate about administrative protocols or technological budgets. It has transformed into an intensely personal crisis about the physical survival of a young family caught in the crosshairs of global fame and shifting modern threats. This dark reality is made infinitely more complicated by the looming shadows of King Charles III's ongoing health struggles, an institutional crisis that has dramatically accelerated the unofficial transition of power and responsibility onto Prince William's shoulders. With the king forced to scale back his public engagements and focus heavily on his recovery, William is no longer just the heir waiting in the wings. He is effectively operating as the functional, strategic shield of the entire monarchy. This massive, sudden accumulation of constitutional and familial responsibility has naturally made the Prince of Wales completely intolerant of any operational mistakes or administrative incompetence within his household. Insiders note that William's current anger is driven by a deep, protective instinct for his 3 young children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, who are growing up in an era where the boundary between public transparency and personal safety has been completely erased by the digital age. The future security blueprint currently being drafted under William's direct supervision is said to include a radical, uncompromising tightening of crowd control measures for all future public engagements. This could mean significantly shorter public interactions, heavily fortified physical barriers, and an advanced digital surveillance web that pre-screens everyone within a 1-mile radius of the royal family, effectively ending the old era of spontaneous royal walkabouts. As the heavy curtain of silence from Kensington Palace remains firmly drawn, the British monarchy finds itself standing at a historical crossroads from which there is absolutely no turning back. The institution, which was built on a delicate foundation of ancient mystery and distant majesty, must now learn to survive in an aggressively transparent digital world where a single smartphone can compromise a century of security planning in a fraction of a second. The deep, agonizing dilemma of how to remain deeply loved and accessible to the public without exposing the direct line of succession to catastrophic danger remains the single hardest question facing the modern court. For Prince William, the answers are no longer found in traditional compromises or polite diplomatic stall tactics. They are found in strict, unwavering operational discipline and absolute structural accountability. As the palace quietly implements these massive security overhauls behind closed doors, the public is left to watch a monarchy that is calm and perfectly composed on the surface, but profoundly tense and hypervigilant within. The grand illusion of royal invincibility may have been permanently shattered in that restricted corridor, but in its place, a much more realistic, protective, and resilient leadership is emerging to safeguard the future of the crown at all costs.